So we do have a quorum. So thank you and welcome to the Narber Civic Association annual meeting. Our agenda is, I hope, going to be relatively brief tonight, but important. We are going to talk about what the Narber Civic Association has accomplished over the past year. Who's mostly reporting, I thank Kimberly and Barbara, who are here tonight, who served as our past president. And since Barbara is running for council, she can no longer serve as on Narber Civic Association, but her service has been invaluable, as you will hear. Then we will have elections to the board. The nominating committee has nominated Georgette Dubois, Patsy Higgins, myself, Andy Mosner, and Bayesta Khan for 2-year terms. We will open the floor up to any other nominations, and then we will have the election to the board of directors. After that is finished, I will give I will introduce Samantha Bryant, our new borough manager, to everyone. We'll have short question and answer for her, and then we'll turn the presentation over to Aaron Muderick, who is the outgoing president of Borough Council for the state of the borough. And then you're all going to be free to leave and watch the US Costa Rica soccer game, as I'm going to do when it's necessary. Okay, so let's talk about some of the accomplishments of Narber Civic Association last year. We unfortunately, a lot of the year was virtual. Starting last year, we had our annual membership meeting at which Council President Muderick reported on the state of the borough. We elected our other board of directors for 2-year terms, and we moved on. And some of the things that we did last year, and as I look at this list that Barbara compiled, it really is astonishing that we were able to do this without even mostly meeting. On March 18th, 2021, we had a community chat with the police chief, John Gallagher. In March 2021, we had distributed our welcome bags to new residents. On April 15th, 2021, we had our candidates forum with the Democratic candidates. At that time, there weren't any Republican candidates, but there are now, and hopefully we will be having a candidates forum, which we'll be announcing shortly. From April 18th to 24th, we had Narbirth Week, all virtual. I attended a couple of those presentations and they were remarkable. On April 27th, we held a town hall on 3 Elmwood Avenue on the proposed development. In June 2021, we had the recycling guide mailed to all Narbirth residents. That took us about 2 years to perfect. In July 2021, we nominated Climate Action NARBS and NIRBS CAN for the Go for the Green Award, which they were subsequently awarded. In August 2021, we relaunched our Narber Civic Association website, and Andy Mosner deserves a lot of the thanks for that, which was truly amazing. And for those of you who have not been to the Narber Civic website, please go and explore it. It really is a great achievement. In September, we began our welcome bag distribution again to new residents and to welcome our new NARBs to the community. We have re-upped our Narber Civic Association website and Facebook page. We have been instrumental in getting the Narberth Borough Council meetings live streamed and saved on our Facebook channel. And literally, there have been many, many people who have watched this, who have watched the meetings. And it really is a great accomplishment that people can watch virtually. We have, I think, fulfilled our goals to engage the community with our Narberth Borough government and thereby build a better community for all of us. And we're very proud of our accomplishments in the last year. Is there anybody who has any questions about what these events were? I will try to view all of you at the same time. Okay, I don't see any questions. So I'm going to move on to the next order of business, which is nominations and elections to the board of the Narberth Civic Association. The nominating committee has nominated Georgette Dubois, Patsy Higgins, myself, Andy Mosner, and Bayesta Khan for 2-year terms. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll close the nominations. And since there is a closed slate, I'm going to ask for election by approval of the entire slate. And what we do in other venues to approve is to twinkle. And a twinkle for a yes is to show your hands like this. So all those in favor, please twinkle. All those opposed? Seeing none, the nominees are elected by acclamation. Okay, the next order of business is I am, let's see where Samantha is. I have to allow my screen to share. There you are. I'm sorry. I'll call on Andy. Can you unmute? Can you
Just wanted to let everybody know the website address, www.norberthcivic.org.
Yes, I should have put that up there, but thank you.
That's
for
okay.
Okay, I would like to introduce to everybody our new borough manager, Samantha Bryant, for those of you who have not met her. And I am going to ask her to unmute and just introduce herself and talk a little bit about her background, and then to take any questions that anybody has. Go ahead, Samantha.
Great. Thank you, Rich. And thank you all for having me here with you tonight. I'm really glad to be here in Narberth. I've been serving as borough manager for about 4.5 months now. And Narberth is such a wonderful community and such a great place to work, and talking to the residents, such a great place to live. And I'm just so glad to be here and help, Borough Council and help the Civic Association and all our other community groups and residents, trying to make everyone's lives better and, move the borough forward in the direction that we want it to go, making things better while retaining that charm and that character that makes Narberth such a unique and such a nice place to be. My background, just so everyone knows, I worked for 5.5 years as borough manager and treasurer for New Britain Borough, which is a town that's a little bit smaller than Narberth in central Bucks County. It's over beside Doylestown, if that maybe rings a little bit more of a bell. Prior to that, I did some work in West Pikeland Township and Doylestown Township, and did a graduate education down at UPenn in public administration and public finance. And so through the municipal work I've had a chance to do, a lot of it has been relevant to the things that we're working on here in Narberth. But also Narberth has given me a lot of great opportunities to grow and expand my career. And, so far I've just been thrilled to be here. And let's see, I live in Bala Cynwyd. So I'm about, it takes me about 6 minutes to get from door to door from where I live to the borough office. I have 2 cats. I think when I first got posted in the newsletter when I was hired, I was looking for cats. And again, speaking how great this community is, a community member saw that and helped me find the 2 cats I have now. So they might, pop up at some point here behind me. And, like I said, it's just such a great place to be. And I'm so glad to be here. And, if anyone has any questions tonight or in the future, I'm always happy to talk with residents and, see how I can be of a service.
Well, we are happy to have you. And does anybody have any questions for Samantha? I don't see any. Thanks, Samantha. Okay. The next item on the agenda is to hear the state of the borough, and I'm going to give the screen share over to Aaron Mutterick, President of Borough Council, so that he can share his screen with us. I have to remember how to do this.
Thank you, Rich.
No, you're welcome. Let's see if I can figure out how to do this.
Oh, I think I'm in. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for having me. I am Aaron Mutterick, currently president of Narberth Borough Council. And I'd like to go over this every year that you guys have been kind enough to have me, is a summary of what our government is. We have 9 elected officials, the council, the mayor, the tax collector. There are 15 employees of the borough. It gives you a sense of scale, but now we can start to see some multipliers with over 60 appointed volunteers serving on the different boards and commissions. And then we talk about sort of our community beyond government. That is the 40 plus members of the volunteer fire company, members of the library board, the athletic association, yourselves as members of the Civic Association, Friends of Sabine Park is a fairly new addition as a community organization to the borough family, the Narberth Business Association, and many, many more. It numbers in hundreds of individuals who are all contributing to their community and making a difference. It is important for all of us to realize that we, you, me, are part of this community. And I hope that some of what I present tonight brings thoughts and opinions to your mind, because this is a community where its size is such that you can be part of the decision-making process. This is a small enough community that one voice really has a major impact and can make a real difference. 3 people coming to a council meeting for 3 months straight on a single issue probably will put it to the top of council's priorities. And I say it because we're living in a time where I think people feel very powerless about their government. They feel like their government isn't listening to them. And Narberth is a special kind of community where you can contribute. Also, it's a community that can only continue to exist because you contribute your time and your skills. And we do not have the resources for all of this to sort of be professional staff, nor I think would any professional staff, no matter how dedicated, bring the sort of ownership and love that the members of the community who have chosen to live here bring to the conversation. 2020 was a challenging year for all of us. It was a challenging year for the borough, not only in managing daily operations under COVID-19 and restrictions for people being in person and gatherings and groups, having our meetings done over Zoom, but also our borough manager, Sean Metrick, departed at the end of 2019. Our interim manager and former assistant manager, Matt West, departed April 2020. Our public works director departed April 2020. And I point this out because I think it worked out. We survived with no professional management staff working in the borough for approximately 6 weeks in April and May until Ms. Bryant began working as our new borough manager. And I point that out for a couple of reasons. One is to survive those weeks and to survive that transition time, which really was about 6 or 7 months from the departure of the manager until Samantha had an opportunity to get her feet wet, required reducing discretionary project activity to a bare minimum. We needed to focus on the things we had to do, the things we're legally required to do, and the nice to haves or the community development projects that could survive a 6-month delay did so. And I think that was managed. It would have been ideal not to have to manage it at all, but if you're going to manage it without falling on your face, I think we did a pretty good job. We worked with existing employees to fill gaps short-term in daily operations. I want to shout out and really a sign of respect and gratitude towards those borough employees who were asked to step into some manage-ish type decision-making or preparing the kinds of reporting upwards to council that were not really part of their daily job description. In particular, Michelle Carroll really organized and kept all of the different pieces moving and kept the information flowing during that time period. It was very stressful, and we are most appreciative in this community that she and others were willing to step up. Mr. Dixon actually as well as foreman of the Public Works group. We engaged a search firm to recruit candidates with applicants from a national pool. As a philosophy, I think we have always, in the past 12 years, taken the position that this borough is a special community and it's worth it, and it's worth finding the absolute best talent that we can, rather than necessarily promoting from within or promoting from within a 5 or a 10-mile radius. And so we did that. We created those plans to run the borough on a daily basis. I stepped in making some necessary day-to-day decisions. In reading the Pennsylvania State Association of Boroughs magazine for many years, there are many boroughs that do not have a professional manager, where the council president sort of operates in a semi-operational role in terms of making those decisions. And so I had studied well and was able to handle that without ruffling too many feathers for a little while. We interviewed a number of candidates and ultimately hired a new borough manager, Samantha Bryant. So with Ms. Bryant in the position, Michelle Carroll was promoted to a new role called assistant to the manager, which is different from assistant manager. I think it fits her skill sets very well, which is a level of administrative organization above that, as above an administrative assistant, but really Ms. Bryant's right hand in keeping the borough organized and running well. We also added a new administrative assistant. And look, I found a typo. Missy Morales, who started in August. And we currently have an open position, which is Director of Public Works, for which we have been in the interview process. Also of note, Michael Vernaccio, our longest tenured police officer, was promoted to Sergeant back in February. And congratulations to Sergeant Vernaccio. COVID-19 affected all of us in the borough. We enacted a mask ordinance in 2020. It was repealed in April 21 as vaccinations became available and our COVID case counts in Montgomery County changed, and sort of the strategies and different ways for approaching COVID-19 change. We had more tools in the toolbox. The state of emergency was repealed around the same time. What was the impact of Narberth Borough's mask ordinance? You know, we took a stronger position than many communities in southeastern Pennsylvania, and I think you can see pretty clearly what the impact was. The average cases, per 100,000 in Montgomery County were 300, and they had 7 deaths per 100,000, and we had 159 cases for our adjusted for our population and 0 deaths. So continuing, we will have monthly meetings of our emergency management team. We monitor the situation at the national, state, county, and local level. And we will continue to strive to protect the residents of Narberth, not only from things like crime or weather events, but also this public health nightmare which has fallen upon us. Also of note, the borough office reopened on June 21st. And so now we're back to a solely virtual environment. You can go in, you can get a building permit, you can ask questions, and we put all the protocols in place to be able to keep our staff safe while doing so. At the last State of the Borough, I suggested that there may be some serious impacts to our borough budget. Municipalities throughout the Commonwealth and the nation were all looking at how their tax revenue may change, their incomes, as well as their expenses. And I wanted to highlight some of what we have seen. We have delayed cash receipts due to property tax filing extensions. That affected our cash flow pretty significantly. Now that those extensions have since passed, and I can report that the property taxes actually collected remains at a very, very high percentage with very low delinquency. I think in line with historical averages. So that is a crisis which was upon us, but has fallen into the past. The business privilege tax, which is the $1.50 for every $1,000 of revenue that a business in the borough of Narberth pays to the local government, was severely impacted in 2020. It will be severely impacted in 2021. You see that on a delayed receipts basis because 2020 is collected in 2021. So we are now seeing that shortfall for 2020. And that means next year we will see the shortfall for 2021. And we are just hopeful that over time, as we work through this pandemic, that number can stabilize, which not only impacts our budget, but it's also a sign of the health of all of our businesses, especially our retail downtown. Building permits were limited during the lockdown. Construction operations were not permitted, and so we issued fewer permits and collected less revenue as a result of that. Offsetting that, there are federal funds that are coming into the borough that provide a cash windfall, and it is true the windfall more than offsets the revenue shortfalls that we are projecting. That is good news for us, and I hope that it's true for most municipalities, for counterparts who are sitting in my shoes in other places who are trying to balance their budgets and recognize that their citizen base have also incurred real financial problems during this pandemic, and that sort of more taxation would be negatively impacting them. So the plan that Manager Bryant has presented to us for the 2022 budget is to use those cash reserves or use the cash that is coming from the federal government to help us bring our cash reserve, cash on hand, to recommended levels. That is something that we've been looking to do for a number of years. We've been putting aside a few tens of thousands of dollars every year to increase. And just as a point of information, 7 or 8 years ago, the borough was borrowing $300,000 or $400,000 at the beginning of every year to cover its cash flow needs to get to the time when taxes would begin to come in. We dug ourselves out of that hole, so we no longer incurred the borrowing costs. Actually, it wasn't so much the interest rate as the fees to lend a municipality a small loan such as this actually ended up sort of making the true interest rate quite high. We dug ourselves out of that, and now we'll be able to get to a point where the borough manager can operate knowing that there's cash in the bank and we don't need to hold checks and delay payments or jumble things around. It's another sign of our increasing health on the financial front as we move to the future. Real estate transfers are on trend. And the market is quite hot. It may even come in a little high. I always like to hedge that until we get to the end of the year and see where that number really is. And the borough's lack of an EIT insulated it from changes in employment styles. So because we do not tax income, we only tax business revenue. When people stopped working at, say, a restaurant, we did not lose income on their receipts that we would get a tax from. And that's not true in many communities with a much heavier commercial district or an earned income tax. If people become suddenly unemployed in mass, then you're just not getting that taxation, whether they live here or they work here. So to summarize some of the smaller projects of the past year, and recognizing that I would say this is a smaller list than I have presented in years past. And a lot of that has to do with the reduction in those discretionary projects for the first 6 months of the year. Dudley Avenue was repaved. It was identified by the engineer in a study as being the road in the worst condition. And that project was completed, and further paving is anticipated based on the results of that study, sort of in order of, well, it's a formula that calculates the condition of the road against the amount of traffic that goes on that road to determine whether or not it should be repaved. So we are putting our best dollars forward, and we're getting the maximum return on our paving dollar. The baseball netting was replaced. The LED streetlight project is almost complete. I'm looking out my window and seeing that my streetlight is not yet on, which means they haven't gotten to the 100 block of Conway yet, but this is not a problem because I prefer dark skies for a little while longer, because I feel like the LEDs are not going to burn out. They're just going to go and go and go for 10 years, 20 years. We did make some investments in the AV improvements for remote meetings, our new OWL, which is really, I think, dramatically improved the watchability and the audibility of our council meetings that happen in our council chambers. We established facility use agreements for many of the organizations, the library, the American Legion, the Girl Scouts, who use the community building, so that everyone is on the same page and the borough has a sort of common ground about who can use those facilities, how they are rented, who they may be rented to, where the revenue goes, rather than the policies of years past, which I think fit the time that they were in, where those organizations sort of ran their own show completely. Now there's a little more coordination through the borough government. We hired a professional police pension fund manager. Previously, this had been done very competently by a group of volunteers who were on our police pension board, but it was the determination that a professional fund manager would not only lighten the burden of the volunteers, but also maybe bring a little more sort of day-to-day accountability to the process. And we were able to get a number of different quotes, and I think for a very reasonable fee, we should be able to see some improved returns. And also a little more ease of working with our borough manager, who does have some expertise in municipal finance and how we can continue to monitor and manage that. It is the largest fund that the borough has in terms of obligations, is the police pension fund. We created a traffic concern review process. All of us have seen someone speeding, skipping a stop sign, sort of driving crazy, and come to the borough council. Many people come to council and say, I need a stop sign here, I need a speed hump there, something has to be done. This was handled very informally in days past, and so a review process was put in place so that it can be recorded, it can be documented, it can be kept track of, and there's a process internally to determine whether or not it rises to the level of sort of borough action. I think it will just improve the chances that everyone is treated fairly and equally when they come. And it will also help manage the application of borough resources, that is ultimately dollars, to problems, making sure that they are real problems before we start spending money solving them, and that it's applied equally across the borough. We did have a community group, which was chaired by Michelle Pananopoulos, Councilor Pananopoulos, to review the parking study and make recommendations. And we are now in the process in the last 3 months of this year with an ad hoc parking committee. And that parking committee is going to come to council with final recommendations for a new borough-wide parking plan. It is going to be something that has been kind of moving along very, very slowly over many years, but it is coming to a head soon. And so if you are interested in how parking in the borough works, and I think everyone is, because it's right in front of our houses, on the streets, and in the commercial districts where you go, we are going to be looking at that and trying to find a way to turn the red zones into yellow zones and keep the green zones, and sort of balance the problems in a way that makes this a nicer community to live, recognizes the walkability of the community, recognizes the hazards which we see on some of the streets where traffic is heavy, or it's hard to have two-way traffic, etc. So that's coming very soon. And we have worked to enhance communication from the borough office to the public. And I give a shout out to Ms. Bryant, whose borough newsletter, since she came into the borough, really has been a wealth of new information for all the citizens to be able to understand where different projects stand and how things are coming along, and I think help draw everyone into feeling like this is their community. The big thing that we did this year was we passed a historic property ordinance, and this just happened a few months ago. We recognize the historic nature of the town, the collective value that we all receive from the built environment. We continue to hear concerns, and honestly, council was concerned itself that opportunistic teardowns are taking perfectly good homes and replacing them. And also in replacing them, removing entry-level affordable housing stock from our community and increasing the average housing price without actually sort of moving the true average, just reducing the number of properties at the lower end. So we adopted an ordinance protecting primary structures, that is homes, not garages, built prior to 1945. And that is now in place, and the map is drawn up. And if you have questions about it, if you're just hearing about this at this meeting, I encourage you to check the borough website, or also, the borough website also has the map available. With the creation of a historic district, we have a historic architecture review board, a HARB, and that HARB is going to be appointing 5 to 7 members, and we need to do that in the next few months. We need to get this board together so that if someone has a question about how they can complete a project within the controls of the standard, there's a lot of recommendations and resources that are not mandatory, but we've offered to homeowners so that their homes can be kept in a way which is historically appropriate if they choose to do so. And these are the members of the HARB. If you are one of these people and you would like to contribute and be part of this community, I encourage you to send in your application to the borough office. And you can see here, we need 1 architect, 1 licensed real estate broker, 1 building inspector, a member of the planning commission, and then the other positions can be filled by members of the community at large. So please, I encourage you to apply. I wanted to touch on the current commercial development projects. As if you've been a member of this yearly meeting in the past, you'll know it's probably the same 4 projects we've been talking about for some time, because that's how long commercial development projects take to complete. It's a multi-year process. So I think it's also moved to a point where I don't need to say that much because you can see it happen. 100 Forest Avenue, the old gas station, has been demolished. It will be replaced with 2 floors of apartments with 1 floor of retail underneath it. So that is 3 floors in total. It will be a significant change. I point this out to the open space in that area, whereas previously you had a large apron for the former gas station and garage that was there. The building will really be much closer to the sidewalk itself. So the space may feel less open, and just be aware when you start to see it happening. The plans are available on the borough website. If you have questions, you can take a look. This is a by right development. That is, the developer came with a plan that fit within the zoning code and did not require any special support or relief to proceed. 114 Forest Avenue, the 4-story apartment building with 52 underground parking spots that is going up at the corner of Forest and Windsor, is having its bricks applied to its facade and nears completion at the end of this year. And it's coming together very well. 100 Haverford, which is the old Rickland site. I saw they were pouring concrete foundation the other day. So the demolition is complete and the construction has begun. The borough office has been working with all of these construction firms to coordinate the parking of their staff, to keep the downtown as open as possible, to allow for the continued operation of business on a daily basis, to really minimize the negative impacts during a construction project. And I think they've been doing a really good job. I thank the contractors who have been participating in this for helping out. And also PICO has been involved with rerouting utilities and other things. There's many, many layers. A lot of people need to work together. The project, which is just beginning now, is 650 Montgomery Avenue. The Albricks greenhouse has come down and a new building will be going there. Final plan revision was just brought to council at our last meeting. And it showed some additional improvements in the style of the building, but it is a 3-story building, 1st floor retail, 2 floors of apartments. The available parking in that parking lot across from the Rite Aid is sufficient for the residents of those buildings and the commercial application. And very excited to see that start to begin. All of this means there is going to be new retail space. And I personally am excited to see the kinds of tenants that want to come into shiny new buildings with great infrastructure and, become a new part of Narberth's retail landscape. I think it is going to be a net benefit to our community. I also wanted to point out the proposed commercial development projects, which are on the table. And the answer is there are none at this time. So we went through a period of 50 years where there was no commercial development in Narberth. We had 4 projects, and now we are back to nothing. And I know that when we see a lot of development all at once, there is fear of change, that too much is happening too fast. Sometimes things happen bursty. Sometimes that's a financial reason. Money, becomes more affordable for developers or for whatever reason. But right now there is nothing else on the table, nothing proposed, or nothing moving forward with any momentum, I should say. I'm going to pass it over to Samantha Bryant, Borough Manager, because these are her words, and I will just move slides as you go through them. We wanted to give a bridge update because we have much more detail than we had at a prior meeting.
Sure. Thank you, Council President Buderick. So yeah, for those of you who aren't signed up for the weekly Borough email, I highly recommend it. This bridge update, as well as lots of other good information that was mentioned earlier in the presentation, can be found on that weekly email. So if you contact the Borough office, or for anyone watching or recording later, if you go to the Borough website, narberthpa.gov, you can get signed up for the weekly email news. So with the bridge, this project is very important to me because I get the sense it's very important to this community. And I think there's going to be a lot of benefits once we can get the bridge reopened for everyone. There's a lot of important projects in the borough, but this is probably project number 1 on my to-do list, just so everyone is aware. So the bridge is required to be inspected by the state every so often. That was done in August. The borough office is working to get a copy of that inspection. I've gotten a lot of questions from people about, will the bridge remain open to pedestrians as it is currently while it's under construction? And the answer is yes, the construction will be done so that the bridge will be open to pedestrians while it's being redone. One of the biggest things we still have left to do is actually get the traffic and design plans approved by Amtrak and PennDOT. So we have submitted 1 set of traffic plans to PennDOT back in July. I have a regular meeting with PennDOT and our engineer to talk about where the project is at. And at our meeting on August 17th, PennDOT gave some feedback and some other comments. Our October 5th meeting actually got canceled because one of the engineers had jury duty, and that was the person we really needed information from. So next Tuesday, we will be back at it, and I'll be definitely nagging people and asking people, where things are at with those traffic plans. As many people probably know, at the beginning of this project, the borough needed 11 easements for this bridge project. I give prior management and borough council a lot of credit. When I came in, 9 of those easements were done. And since I've been here, council has moved forward with a taking for 1 easement. And then the only one left is with Amtrak, which we've come to agreement on. We just have to get the ink on paper and get the last few details taken care of on that. The PUC also has to approve the project. And they've told us that because there are some utilities that have to be relocated as part of it. And they've told us they're not going to approve it until PennDOT and Amtrak have approved it. So that's awaiting a step to be done. Speaking of utilities that have to be moved, the main one is there's a Pico gas line. So, the borough is working with Pico to get that done. Once those steps are done, Borough Council has to have a public meeting and take a final vote, to put out the bids and select a contractor and actually start the construction process. The borough also is going to need a construction inspector. Just, I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence, just for anyone who doesn't know what that means, that's someone whose job is to make sure the contractor is doing the plans that the borough approved. It's their job if there's a change order or if the contractor says, there's something they didn't expect that they need more money for. The construction inspector's job is to tell us whether that's a valid request or not. So I've already met with a few folks to talk about serving in that role. So when we get to this step, we can hit the ground running and not have additional delay while we, search for who that might be. Then most importantly, Amtrak actually has to provide the funding to do the project. The current estimated construction cost is $7.5 million. Thankfully, the borough is only responsible for 5% of that. Amtrak is paying 80% and PennDOT is paying 15%. I've been hearing from Amtrak, they don't think they're going to have it funded until 2023. However, it'll be interesting to see what things happen in Washington over the next few months in regards to infrastructure funding, as well as I'll certainly be working with our federal elected officials. And I've already started talking to them about getting that funding for us, if possible in 2022. Once we actually break ground on the project, I have been warned it will take 18 to 24 months to do it. And I've also been warned that the first 6 months, it will look like nothing is going on. However, that's due to the nature of this project with a lot of the with utilities being moved, with other sort of setup work happening. People will probably joke, oh, look at this, government project where no one's doing anything. But trust me, like work will be going on, and it'll really show after the first 6 months. The good news is I was afraid at first that the borough was going to basically need to borrow, the most of the cost of this project and then get reimbursed by Amtrak and PennDOT. I was corrected on that by PennDOT. They will actually reimburse us, and then we will pay the borough's 5% on to contractors. So thanks to prior management and prior council, the borough does already have the money borrowed and set aside for our contribution. And then the Borough Council will be reviewing art for the bridge. I'm definitely looking forward to that meeting, which will be at our November 3rd workshop meeting.
All right, thank you. I'll take it back here. And I wanted to point out some ongoing long-term projects. These are things that have been on and off over many, many years, but they are the kinds of things that if you are looking to be involved or stay interested, you should be aware of. 201 Sabine Avenue, our property that we own at the old Narberth School, which currently is fully leased with commercial tenants. We continue to have conversations and discussions about what the future of that property might be. We have heard overwhelmingly at the community meeting about 11 months ago that there is a very, very strong desire for open space and to maintain and preserve open space in the borough. And I think council has heard that loud and clear as it considers what the future of that property might be. At our last council meeting, a financial study was presented to council and the public, which shows that the necessary deferred maintenance on that building, if performed, would put the income earning capacity of that building deeply into the red over the next 10, 15, 20 years. Even if you were to take into account sort of increased rents and et cetera, as a result of making those improvements. So it's a conversation that's not going away. Some decisions will need to be made. The status quo of just keeping the building as it is not a viable long-term solution. Similar to how we can't just sort of leave the Narberth Bridge how it is. Eventually, things fall apart. I mentioned the borough-wide parking plan in a prior slide. We also will be doing a business privilege tax audit. That is to say, anyone who runs a business from home or has sort of a retail business or an office business in Narberth should be paying the business privilege tax, which is $1.50 on every $1,000 of revenue. And it's important that we make sure everyone is paying their fair share so that it is equitably distributed based on the laws we have on the books. So that is going to be moving forward. We continue to work to GIS map our storm and sanitary sewer lines. I know that some members in this meeting have storm sewer lines which were not mapped and then they fail, and then it makes a problem. Where people build things on their properties above areas which might need to be dug up later. And so by creating a proper map and digitizing this information, one, we can do proper inspections, and two, everyone can be aware of what's going on under the ground, which will save a lot of money when it comes time to dig it up and do a repair, because we know what we're dealing with when it happens, rather than revisiting the same thing 5 or 6 times trying to make patchwork. Council passed a rental property standard, or a set of guidelines about the standards that rental properties need to maintain in the borough. We have not yet implemented a inspection regime to be able to go out and review properties. We do review complaints, obviously, but sort of being more proactive to protect rental residents in the borough and make sure their properties are up to standard, and also for the protection of neighbors, making sure that the grass is cut, and et cetera. So property maintenance is part of that. Commercial fire inspections on a regular basis throughout some of the businesses. Right now, it happens in the schools, but we feel like there's an increasing level that can happen in the borough, and we want to make sure that takes place. And also sidewalk inspections, which protects all of our toes and feet as we walk around and reduces falling and tripping hazards. So those are projects that are moving forward, and then you'll be seeing action on in 2022. I wanted to just quickly make a point to climate action. Last year, all of the borough properties transitioned over to 100% wind power. So we are making a major impact in the tens of thousands of dollars in terms of where our money goes, whether it's a fossil fuel-based power source, or in this case now, a wind-based power source. And we did receive grant money, and some of our own funds were spent to install EV chargers, 2 on Essex Avenue and 2 in the parking lot behind the library down in Narberth Park. Both of those are available if the borough were to purchase electric vehicles and needed to charge, but also for members of the public to use their credit card at a reasonable rate and charge their electric vehicles. And we hope encourage individuals who don't have driveways, who want electric vehicles, to know that there is a place where they can use their electric vehicle, or they can charge their electric vehicle, so that it works for their lifestyle. I mentioned at the beginning that this is a community, and it is much larger than the government or the professional staff. And to that end, the cooperative gardens had another successful season growing fruits and vegetables on the properties in Narberth Park and Sabine Avenue. We had a bike lane trial, I think was very successful last winter. And we have another trial coming up on Haverford Avenue to change the flow and to allow for safer biking opportunities in the borough. The borough continues to support the Business Association with the dog parade. Very thankful that the music and arts festivals have returned as our pandemic lifestyle has changed. And also borough support to the Business Association for the community events it's picking up to fill in for the former 4th of July committee. That would be the fireworks and some of the concerts in the park and other things which will be returning in 2022, thanks to the Business Association, its volunteers, and the borough's support. We formally supported the Narberth Run and established sort of a system through all of these where the financial contributions and support that we make to these different organizations and different events is documented and formalized, rather than, don't worry, we'll take care of the police overtime. It's understood exactly what that is. And that way council can make strategic decisions about where we spend our dollars. And we did work with the Athletic Association, and we were able to get the basketball courts reopened as we ended our lockdown period. So with that, I want to thank you for your time. And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to serve all of you, to serve this community. As was mentioned, after 12 years on Borough Council, 6 years as Vice President, and the past 6 years as Council President, I will be stepping down and returning to private life. And I hope that some of you take the opportunity to stay involved, get more involved, and offer your personal contribution to this wonderful community, which is truly a special place to raise a family. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aaron. We on the Civic Association, speaking for all of Narberth, we owe you a great deal of thanks for the 12 years that you've spent on council. And personally, I offer you that thanks. And I will welcome you to civilian life because you and I will go out and get a beer together. All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Aaron? I'm looking, I don't see anybody with their hands up. So with that, does anybody have any new business that they want to raise?
There
or-
were some hands. There were waving hands.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Mosner? Sorry, you're
Andy?
muted, sir.
I must have missed Andy.
Andy, you're muted. You need to unmute.
I'm gonna go to Jet first
Okay.
because she's unmuted.
It took me a minute to get my video on me.
Okay, George.
Hang on. Aaron, a number of years ago, there was some kind of a system where you could report things that were problems like intersections where you couldn't see because bushes or whatever were, and I know that doesn't exist anymore. So how do we deal with those things now? I'm aware of a couple really dangerous intersections where if you want to make a left turn, you really have to pull out halfway into the road, by which time it may be too late. And so how do we handle that?
Sure. Actually, I'm going to ask Ms. Bryant to speak to the best way to do that. I will point out, we didn't buy See-Click Fix, and we
Right.
discovered while it worked for the community, there wasn't an infrastructure behind the scenes to be able to respond to those requests and
Right.
track those tickets. But I know that is something on Ms. Bryant's list because it sort of speaks to the way her brain works. Go ahead.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so yeah, the borough doesn't have See-Click Fix anymore. I do think we're gonna be moving back in that direction, maybe not necessarily See-Click Fix, but something like that in 2022. We're actually looking at a software called MyGov that would allow the borough to have more accountability with work orders and maybe give some opportunities for the public to submit them. For now, if you go to the borough website, there is a work order form. And if you fill that out and turn that into us, we can, get working on your concern for you.
Oh, okay. And the situations I'm talking about, I think, are both ones where it's somebody's private property where the stuff is growing so that you can't see it. So this would be the way to handle it, though?
That would be yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
That was it.
I don't see any hands. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attendance. We on Norbert Civic Association really appreciate it. And with that, we will adjourn our annual meeting until next year. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Aaron, so much, as always. Really
Thank you all.
valuable.
Yeah, very informative. Thanks.
My pleasure.